Doctor Who will soon be returning to our screens, with Jodie Whittaker taking over as the 13th Doctor. The casting of a female Doctor is probably the single biggest thing to happen to the show since the first regeneration, way back in 1966. So, what better time to look back at each of the Doctor's eras so far? Join me for the trip of a lifetime as I recap the very best of each era, revealing some of my favourite Doctor episodes and moments along the way. In many ways, the second Doctor's era is much like the first Doctor's. It's all filmed in black and white. Many of its episodes are missing from the BBC archives. Indeed, no stories from Troughton's debut season, Season 4, are available to watch in their entirety. It even uses the same title sequence as the first Doctor's era to begin with. Yet as this era progresses, it evolves into something very different to what had been seen on Doctor Who before. Patrick Troughton's second Doctor is characterised by an eccentricity and a mischievous quality not seen in the first. Overall in his stories, there's more of a focus on him actively looking for trouble, rather than just discovering or exploring or observing, as the first Doctor might have done. Arguably, there's also more of a focus on the monsters than there had been before. The second Doctor's era is often referred to as the Monster Era, and with good reason too. It saw the Cybermen, one of the show's most iconic foes, come into their own, as well as appearances from memorable creatures such as the Ice Warriors and Yeti. Indeed, many of the era's stories fit into the Base Under Siege category, a format that sees a remote human outpost attacked by a monstrous external force. In my opinion, the regeneration of the first Doctor seemed rather tacked on to the end of the 10th planet. By contrast, the second Doctor's final few stories look to the show's future, laying the groundwork that will ensure its continued success. Colonel Lethbridge Stewart is promoted to Brigadier and established as a recurring character, along with his organisation unit, two elements that will become staples of the Pertwee era. The second Doctor's final story, The War Games, introduces us to the Doctor's own race and home planet, as well as setting up the exile that will confine his next incarnation to Earth. All these details are carefully woven into the script in order to create more of a transition into the next Doctor's era than the first Doctor had been afforded. This is an era that helped to establish Doctor Who as a show that is here for the long run, proving it can evolve and regenerate, and laying the foundations that would help it to do so again. So, out of those I've seen, what are my favourite second Doctor stories? The Power of the Daleks, a story that is missing from the BBC archives, but does exist today in animated form. The Daleks are at their most menacing here, pretending to be good in order to further their own cause. It's also another great example of a Base Under Siege story, and the first to explore the aftermath of regeneration. The Tomb of the Cybermen, a story that is nothing less than iconic. It's perhaps most famous for its imagery of Cybermen breaking out of their tombs, but is also significant for seeing the first appearance of the Cyber Controller and Cybermats. The Invasion. Incidentally, the Doctor Who story that I've watched most recently at the time of recording this video. Though a tad overlong perhaps, everything else about it is excellent. Kevin Stoney's brilliant performance as the chilling Tobias Vaughan, the iconic shots of the Cybermen invading London, framed against St. Paul's, the introduction of Unit, and the action-packed action sequences. The Seeds of Death. The Ice Warriors' second outing shows them working on a much larger scale in an attempt to invade Earth. There's some brilliant world building in this story to establish the system of TMAT and the futuristic setting, making it totally believable. For my favourite second Doctor moment, I've picked a brief scene from the Tomb of the Cybermen, in which the Doctor and Victoria discuss their respective families. It's a lovely, heartfelt moment, one that certainly wouldn't be out of place in the new series. It proves that the classic series is just as capable at pulling off good character moments, and also embodies the magic of Doctor Who, with the wonderful line, "Our lives are different to anybody else's. Nobody else in the universe can do what we're doing." What do you love about the second Doctor's era? Post your thoughts in the comments below, and be sure to join me next week as I look back at the third Doctor's era.